Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. My name is Dr. Zui Nigurkar and I'm a first year radiology resident in Mumbai. Today's video is surprisingly not about NEET PG. It's going to be a bit about NEET UG. A lot of my audience is people who are preparing for NEET UG, and some of you actually suggested that I make a video talking about what mistakes I made in NEET UG and what I would do differently if I was giving NEET UG right now. I found this. Surprise, I have a diary from those days also. Like I told you, I keep a diary for literally everything. So I had started writing this diary back in 10th standard and I continued using this diary in 11th and 12th. I wrote stuff in this which like literally came true. I saw my meticulous planning. It made me feel proud of how disciplined I was like 6-7 years ago. And although I am not relevant anymore when it comes to how you should study, where you should study from and what exactly is to be read, I am literally an old lady right now for all you 16-17-year-old teenagers. But I think I do have some old lady wisdom to share with respect to what I did wrong, what I did right back then, and I have my diary to remember all that stuff and to share it with you guys, to give you evidence that this was actually true and not stuff which I'm just making up. Take everything I say with a pinch of salt because this was all 7 years ago. But before we get too deep into this, those 2 years, whether you believe it or not, were the worst 2 years of my life. Like they were the lowest point I had in my life. Now looking back, I only remember all the good stuff. No matter how much I look back on it now, I remember only the good parts. But when I read my diary and then I thought about it, I recollected that there were actually some really bad moments too. I was so stressed out, always under constant pressure, always doubting myself and putting myself down when I did not do as well on some tests or did not study as well on some days. We are all 16 or 17 years old when we are preparing for this exam for NEET UG. Whether you like it or not, you are not emotionally mature at that age. You don't know how to handle big stresses in life. To suddenly give this exam which can literally decide your entire future, your entire career at such a young age is a little daunting. It can put you in tremendous stress or pressure. Even if nobody else is pressurizing you to do well, it's a pressure that you are putting on yourself. It can kind of mentally and emotionally change you. My first advice is that you have a support system in place, people who you trust and people who are there for you no matter what. Please share any little inconvenience or any negative thought which you have. Share it with these people, talk it out, write it in a diary, process this thought and try and understand your feelings around this thought. Take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Like 6 or 7 years down the line, are you going to look back and feel so bad about one weekly test which you did bad in or which you screwed up? Are you going to feel bad about one day when you did not get any studying done and which you feel was a day you wasted? Years later, this stuff is not going to be so important. I know it feels important right now at the moment, and it is, but it is not worth putting yourself down so much that you cry and you panic and you have a mental breakdown. Considering all the stuff which has been happening right now, like you're seeing in the news around NEET UG aspirants in Kota, all the sad things that we are getting to hear. My first advice to you guys is that take a step back. Every time you are feeling like one thing or some bad thing is getting overwhelming, look at the bigger picture. Eventually, all of this is for your well-being and for you to do good in the long run. If you are miserable at the end of this journey, then what is the point? Remember that all this is secondary. You come first. Always try to remember that it's okay to push yourself. It's okay to sometimes doubt or question the things which you are doing. Extremes are bad. Everything is good in moderation. Now coming to mistake number 1, which I used to make back then. I used to have a lot of negative self-talk in order to push myself or to push my limits, to motivate myself. Sometimes I used to practice negative self-talk. I have written it down in this diary and it is really killing me that I used to say all this stuff to myself. Zui, you have to start studying harder. No breaks for you, only a nap and that's it. You waste enough time as it is. Stop being pathetic. Everyone is going to start studying harder now. You aren't smart enough, but hard work will be your savior. You have to plan and work. Have specific aims. Stop lazing around and wasting time. Did I really have to call myself pathetic and not smart enough to push myself. I don't think so. I think it added to the stress which I had and the ball of negative emotions which you are stuck in, and it's difficult to break out of that and be positive and study positively. I feel positive motivation is much better and lasts longer than negative motivation. This negative self-talk, I think, was completely unnecessary, and I did it quite often, which I'm not proud of. And if you are somebody who practices this to motivate yourself, I think you should stop it. In the moment it feels fine, but you're developing a bad habit and it will stick with you in the long run if you don't nip it in the bud right now. The other good thing which I did is I have also written down some things which make me feel ki, oh, I was also nice to some extent. Zui, don't stress yourself about getting everything done. That should be your aim every day, but don't let it affect your motivation to study. Then there won't be any point of this planning. Tackle one thing at a time, make a decision and do it. You'll figure out how to deal with other stuff later. Focus on one thing at a time. Positive self-talk is really the key, I feel, because then you read back on this stuff later in the day when you're planning for your next day, and then you feel really good about it. Good energy keeps you going for longer than your negative self-talk ever will. One mistake which I used to make very often, actually every week, is that I used to give weekly tests and then forget about them. We had our question paper, the answer key, everyone would calculate their marks. We would ask each other, how much did you score, how well did you do? Then I would feel good if I did well on the test, feel crap if I did bad on the test, and then forget about it. I never bothered to sit down and resolve the MCQs which I got wrong, or to find out why I got them wrong. I did not even read the question again when I was checking my marks with the answer key. I did not put any efforts into correcting my mistakes, and I did not do this for the entire 2 years for which I was studying for NEET UG. Few months before the exam, I finally woke up and realized that I am making a big blunder. And I went through my old tests. Then I tried to do all this in the last 2 months, which was a little pointless because I had already forgotten the logic which I used on my own for solving the MCQ. Then why it was wrong, what needs improvement in the first place. I forgot all this. One big mistake which I made is this. You guys need to look at tests the way I looked at tests during NEET PG, as a learning tool. I always gave these tests in an offline environment. We did not have online classes back then. If you're doing online classes, I think you should at least join like one test series in an offline setting, so you get an idea of how it feels to physically sit and solve an exam. For that, I want to talk about Sankalp Bharat and their test series which they have brought out, which contains like 25 tests, and out of those only 3 are online and 22 tests are based in an offline setting. Practice all your knowledge and keep giving these tests and then solve them. See where you stand according to the ranking, but more importantly, look at your mistakes, use it to practice the topics which you are getting wrong and the ones which need more focusing and more efforts on your side. The offline test series is actually deliverable at your doorstep. They will print out a solution sheet and an OMR sheet for you to practice on, and the solution sheet to check your answers. And this test series is based on the latest NEET UG pattern, so you can rest assured that you are not falling behind or sticking to the old ways or the old patterns. For example, I personally really sucked at physics, and I really sucked at projectile motion and rotational motion when it came to physics. Much later, when I went through all my physics tests again and then properly analyzed each and every one of them, topic wise tests, figured out these 2 are my weak points, and then made like a formula sheet of all the formulae which are there in these 2 topics. I made this sheet at the end when I had like barely few weeks to revise it. If I had done this right in the beginning and had a formula sheet with me every day, and if I had revised this every night before going to bed for like the entirety of that year, I think I would have done so much better and felt so much more confident about these 2 topics. Not reassessing myself and not revising what I'm getting wrong and not improving on those things, big blunder. The cost of the test series is actually 1,332, but you can use my code and get 25% off. You can get this series for $9.99 only. Remember that solving more tests is never bad. It's actually great practice. The closer you get to the exam, especially if you're in 12th standard, so you should be solving more number of tests and getting more practice in. Even if you're not solving MCQs from MCQ books or from apps, you should definitely give tests for a more holistic approach, understand where you're going wrong, do doing one subject at a time and practicing for the entire NEET UG exam with all the subjects all together, where each subject is adding into your total. It's like a different thing. So to join this test series, you can find the link in the description under this video. Sankalp Bharat also has like batches for droppers, so you can go ahead and get their test series and look into the app if you find it more interesting. Another right thing which I did was give myself guidelines which you have to follow no matter what. So suppose one day you are tired of planning for what to study and then you have no idea what you want to do. There's already a guideline which the past you made so that you'd never run out of things to study. So in 10th standard, I had made this systematic studying and planning, or systematic planning and studying, or whatever. I used to call it SPS or SSP. This was my baseline for studying every day throughout the week. So I would never run out of things to study. I already have to do all this. Along with that, I have to do other stuff which I have planned additionally. And then I repeated this in 12th standard. Basically, I had this thing planned daily. So I was doing this daily regardless of whatever else I had planned or what test was coming up on Sunday of that week. This was a backbone of my studying for every day. Reading this right now, I am getting goosebumps and I'm feeling like, my god, I had good clarity on what I wanted to do and what needed to get done, what was important, what I should prioritize. This was such a good thing to fall back to every time I felt lost. Like I would just read this and then I would already know what is to be done. I wouldn't feel so lost in terms of what I should be doing, where should I focus, where should I put my energy into. I already know it because I did some reflection and I wrote it down. One big mistake which I made initially was I thought that sleep deprivation was equal to studying really hard. I had a really erratic sleep schedule and for some reason it made me feel productive. Sleep schedule is good. 4 hours of sleep at night, 2 hours of sleep in the afternoon. I don't know why I thought this was a good thing. I was sleeping for only 4 hours at night. I would stay up to study and then in the afternoon I was sleeping for 2 hours. And I don't know what made me think this was a good decision because I used to be tired throughout the day. The 2-hour nap would not do me any good. It would just leave me groggy and like really it would make me lose my focus. I was not attentive in classes, so this was a really bad thing to do, I personally feel. I later on changed this and I corrected my sleep pattern. I understood the importance of sleep. I started prioritizing that, and then when I was awake, then I would push myself to get more things done. The one good thing which I did was getting my doubts solved. Like after class, there used to be sometimes doubt solving sessions as extra classes, and it was voluntary if you wanted to attend these. I would write those doubts down in my diary and then I would carry this diary with me to class every day. Even while attending a lecture, if I felt like I had a doubt, something I did not understand, I would write it down. In the doubt solving classes, I would properly try and understand these concepts and get even like MCQ doubts solved. So I don't remember any of this right now, but yeah, I would write down all my doubts and make sure I used to get them solved in doubt solving extra classes. And the last thing which I did well, I used to write down every single day that I will get into the college which I want. I started doing this much later, 1 month or 2 months before the exam. Like I did my UG from KM, and back then my brother actually took me to KM and he said ki get a look at the campus and see what the campus looks like, and then you can picture it every time you are studying and that will motivate you that you want to go to this place. Did that. We went to KM, we walked around a little bit. I saw the UG students there back then and I was like, college life looks so cool and this campus is so cool and I really want to go there. And since that day, I started writing in my diary every single day, like I'm going to get into KM, I will get into KM, I'll be in KM. Laser pinpoint focused on what I wanted. So when I was going through this diary to plan for this video, I read this, I came across this. This is after the exam when the results came out and everything. So this is my actual NEET UG result, my mark, my all India rank and my state rank. Another thing which I think I did right, I made a lot of smart notes to help me revise better. For when it came to 11th standard NCRT portion, like all that botany stuff, everything related to plants, I literally summarized entire chapters in 1 or 2 pages. Before my biology Sunday test exams, Saturday night I would just sit down and go through these pages and that's it. And for physics, I made a formula sheet with all the end derivations of all the complex formulas. When it comes to physics, it is a matter of how much time you put into each MCQ. If you could dedicate a lot of time to each MCQ, then things would be easy. You could sit and relax and find the correct answer to each question. But because there is such a lack of time and you have to be fast, we tend to mess up in really silly ways. Memorizing these end derivations of formulas was really helpful for me. So for example, this was my least favorite chapter, and that's why I made the best notes for this. I would write down which pages have important diagrams for me to check, and then the rest, all the factual information was summed up in these few pages. All the minerals and like every single thing about them, like all their functions, that is the entire chapter. So before Sunday test, if I could just go through these pages, it was as good as going through the entire chapter in my NCERT textbook. As usual, start making these notes really early so you don't have to worry about it much later in your preparation. That was me sharing everything that is there in this diary. Not everything, like there's a lot of boring planning in here which will not make sense to most people. So that is all that I wanted to share with you guys. Some things which I did really well, some things which I messed up, what you should be doing to get the result which you are hoping for. More than anything, I hope this was like a fun video for you to watch, something that fills you with a little bit of positivity when it comes to this really stressful exam. I hope you guys take it to heart what I said in the beginning of this video. It's just an exam. It is not your entire life, and you don't have to put yourself under tremendous pressure to a level where you can't cope with it. If at any point you feel like things are getting out of control, please reach out to those around you. Please reach out to your friends. Have a good support system. Work for what you want, but don't let it consume you both mentally and physically. Try and treat this just as an exam. These 2 years will feel a little hellish. I hope you continue to take care of your physical and mental health. Allow people around you to look after you and to take care of you when you need it. Understand your limits, and when it's getting too much to bear, take a step back, take 1 day off, relax. Don't punish yourself for not being able to do the things which maybe people around you can do. It is okay sometimes to not achieve the exact thing you want, but the next best thing. As long as you can find happiness in whatever you are doing and you can find enjoyment, fulfillment, then it is all worth. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I am doing my residency currently. Thankfully, I had the time to sit down and film this. If you guys have any questions or any suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. I will try and see you guys in the next video as soon as possible. That's it from me. Bye bye.